already know, whenever we're on an investigation, it's fair use and they caboose bone. Shalom to the tribe. We're on a great investigation, man. This is one of those bonus bonus rounds that might lead to something, might lead to a treasure, might lead to a treasure trove. Fair use and they caboose bone, man. I was watching this show on Netflix called Altered Carbon. And it's a scene, when you're in this rich girl's house that used to be a plantation. In the background, you see this portrait of a brother. And, maybe, I'm going to come right back to it and play this clip. But, you're going to see that this other kid asked her, who's that? She says, oh, yeah, that's Denmark Tanny. Denmark Tanny. And he's the one that used to own this whole plantation. Not just this one plantation. But he bought a bunch of these plantations. He bought a bunch of land and he bought it in gold, my NAGA. He purchased all this land in gold. Now he's connected to this, according, at least to the fictional narrative, which I'm trying to find some reality to it. And I'm going to offer it up to y'all, man, so y'all can dig on it and let me know if there's any reality to this character, right, that they're inserting as a subplot, which is actually more more interesting than the whole story. And we got a link that's going to talk about the subplot. And you're like, never have a subplot that's more intriguing than your story. A slave, right? A slave that's aboard a famous ship that goes shipwrecked, and this cargo of gold worth over $400 million goes missing on a ship called the Royal Merchant, according to this narrative in this show called Outer Bank, right? So the theory is that this man right here is the one who found the gold, found the 400 million in gold, and he paid for all this land for his people. He bought the plantations so that his people would be able to live without being slaves. So he was a liberator who was liberating with this gold, according to this story. Now, before we play this clip, click the links below. There's going to be a quick drop. I just want to see what y'all think about this. All right, let's go. We just surfing away. Our ushistory.org. All right. All right. So according to this show, matter of fact, let's get this link first. I just got a bunch of links up. I don't have a particular order, but I do surf the way. Which one is it? Let's try this one here first. And then we'll work our way backwards. Now, in this show called Outer Banks on Netflix, you just saw the portrait of the brother, right? You got these rich kids and poor kids, right? They're all, they're battling and, whose dad is this, and yada, yada, yada. Now these kids are on the treasure hunt to try to find this gold, and they realize, oh man, this brother must have stashed the gold. The brother that bought the whole entire place, man. So, all the land was bought by this, and the show is called Tanny or Tanny Hill. But in reality, it's a Denmark Vesey. Now, according to the narrative of the show, around 1824 is when this shipwreck happened. Now, the real Denmark, he was executed in 1822, so that was a couple of years difference right there, which ain't really nothing. They're just fictionalizing this character, Denmark Vesey. And it wasn't until they mentioned this brother in the portrait. Oh man, what they do? Yeah, I don't want to play it yet. I don't want to play it yet. I just want to show you. Back to the picture. All right, so you saw the portrait. Y'all saw the portrait. All right, so we're gonna get there. All right, so this Denmark. She said he's Denmark Tanny, founder of Tanny Hill. Right. So, is it a coincidence that at that same exact time period, 1820s, there's another Denmark? But he's Denmark Vesey. Now, Denmark Vesey, he's popular for a whole nother reason. He's not popular for finding gold. He's popular for, or he was claimed, let's say, that he organized one of the biggest slave revolts. You talk Nat Turner. This was, I want to say about almost a decade before Nat Turner. And he and I think another 30 people were executed based on the conspiracy because somebody snitched, somebody snitched on, and they said over 9,000 Negroes were involved, and they were about to wipe out the entire damn near white population on this island, or I think it was somewhere in South Carolina. We're about to get a quick little documentary on that as well. And it just got me into this character, man, and who's not a character, who's a real life, figure, who wasn't taking that shit no more, who was telling his people that they are the Hebrews, just like Nat Turner. So even though he didn't get to pop his off like Nat Turner, it was, it was a setup, that didn't pop off. But, there's a lot of mixed feelings, man. Some people love him, some people hate him, obviously, right? So now, what does he got to do with this gold and this national treasure? That's the part that I'm linking. I'm like, no one's ever talked about that part of the story. Did they just drop a gem on this Netflix show that this Denmark Vesey, maybe he was executed for another reason? Because anybody that got near the gold, they said in this TV show, they said anybody that even got, he said, once you find the gold, saying that's the easy part. But, once, after that, once you try to hide it and people know you got it and everybody start getting killed. So did this this is just an abstract theory, man. Like I said, could be some, could be nothing. But I'm saying, did this Denmark Vesey, who's known for this slave revolt, who was executed in 1822, was he set up? And there's going to be, some theories around that he wasn't actually doing shit, that they really just set him up. And why would they set him up? Did it have anything to do with this treasure, this gold? Huh? We're just surfing the wave, man. So you can click this link. Again, the show is called Outer Banks. All right. And I'm just getting, it's going to belly flop to a couple pieces here. So, despite locating the wreckage of the Royal Merchant, now I haven't found a ship necessarily called the Royal Merchant. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. But just keep it in mind that there's a ship involved. All right. And we're going to compare the stories and the real life story of this Denmark Vesey. Our gang fails to uncover any hidden treasure, and John B. pouts his way home. All right, so they're just giving a recap of, either one episode or the whole thing. I'm not sure. Let me see. Alright, so this is what I will say is that it's never good to include a subplot in your show that is far more interesting and relevant than the premise of your show. And yeah, this is way more interesting than these, you know, privileged kids pouting about what they got and what they don't got, and my dad is this, and I wish my life was that. You know what I mean? Nah, man, there's a NAGA that bought all the land for his people in gold, and he's connected to this big revolt. So they ignored the revolt part, and maybe on the flip side, they're ignoring the gold part. Let's go. So they say series producers, yeah, a formerly enslaved person escaped a shipwreck with enough gold to buy a cotton plantation in the pre-Civil War South. But you don't want to hear more about how John B. spent it. But you don't want to hear more about how John B. spent his summer. So yeah, no one cares about how this kid is emotionally handling his life. We want to hear more about the former slave that bought a cotton plantation in gold, using gold. Arriving at the somehow open all-night library archives in a former attire, Sarah and John B. examined the records of Denmark Tanny. So in the show, he's Denmark Tanny. And it's at the same time period as this Denmark Vesey, both existing in the 1820s. All right, so how many Denmarks do you got? Clearly, it says, oh shit, they are doing Denmark Vesey. The young adult Netflix melodrama is using the true life story of Denmark Vesey as a narrative foundation. A narrative foundation for a white teen's rags to riches story. Oh no. Oh no, my nigga. So they're using this narrative, this true life narrative. But the interesting thing is that in the true life narrative, they never mention nothing about gold. So how do they get there unless they're just dropping a jewel that would blow this whole Denmark Vesey situation wide open? Did he discover the gold? Now let's look at some parallels, you know what I mean, as we surf the wave right quick. I'm going to play that clip, and then we're going to dig some more on this Denmark. And again, my NAGA, not even my NAGA, man, I'm talking to the hijacks. Fair use in your caboose bone, man. Always trying to jam me up, give me strikes on my videos, take down videos, just do all kind of shady things, man. Put advertisement in my Look, man, again, we don't monetize at 432 to drop. We have never received one penny from YouTube, and we're going to keep it that way. So if you ever see advertisements, that's not me. It's because they're over there on that play. You know what I'm saying? And this is what we've been fighting the whole time. So, and now that, it's cranking up even more. So we're just going to keep our head, you know what I'm saying, nice and, locked in. We're just going to keep our head, our eyes, everything going to be locked in at this point, man. Because we don't know how long, this whole censorship and we can't talk about, frequency. We can't talk about all this stuff they try to do, take down our videos for all kind of reasons, man. Look, man, fair use in your caboose, Hijack City, all right? Fair use, man. Criticism. We're about to do some criticizing on this show, all right, called Outer Banks on Netflix. All rights reserved for them, all right? We're just under copyright, Section 107, doing some teaching and reporting, a little research, some scholarship. There. All right, let's go. So let's get this clip, man. Shit. Let's rock.
safe. Okay. Close your eyes. On the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2. Oh! You kidding me? My God. Sorry, I've never heard anyone whine like that before.
Wow. Stop.
Excuse you.
Sorry. Who's the dude on the wall?
Oh, it's Denmark Tanny, founder of Tanny Health.
Founder?
Mm-hmm.
So how did a slave found a cotton plantation?
He was a free man. He's kind of a mystery. He showed up out of nowhere.
He's kind of a mystery. He showed up out of nowhere, and you could read it, and paid for all the land around here in gold, my NAGA.
Paid for all of the land around here in gold.
In gold?
Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm not finished, Sancho.
Tanny. I recognize that name. He was on the Royal Merchant.
So he's putting it together because his dad was on the same hunt. You know what I mean? That this brother was on the ship. He was on the ship that was carrying the 400 million in gold. And he comes and buys all the land in gold for the liberation of his people. He's kind of a mystery. We'll get this one more time. Let's go.
Okay. Close your eyes. On the count of 3.
Who's the dude on the wall?
Oh, it's Denmark Tanny, founder of Tanny Health.
Founder?
Mm-hmm.
So how did a slave found a cotton plantation?
He was a free man. He's kind of a mystery. He showed up out of nowhere and paid for all of the land around here in gold.
Okay. So that's all we're going to get from that. All right? That's all we're going to get from that. We out of here, baby. Let go. So let's dig on Denmark. UShistory.org. Hijack City, man. Hijack City. Oh, man. All right, whatever, man. Let's go. Rebels on and off the plantation starting as early as 1663. Slaves were organizing revolts to regain their freedom. Hundreds of minor uprisings occurred on American plantations during 2.5 centuries of slavery. Most of the uprisings were small in scope and were put down easily. Some were larger. All right, let's go. 2 of the most famous revolts were in the early 19th century. One was led by Denmark Vesey, and the other was by Nat Turner. All right, so 2 of the largest slave revolts, but one popped off all the way, and one, you know what I mean, they had a few weasels, you know what I'm saying, that you know what I'm saying, prevented the execution, you know what I mean, of the plan. So it led to the execution of the man. We're talking Denmark. And he has a different name that might lead to a major link. All right, so we're going to get to this other name. Most likely enslaved from birth, Denmark Vesey won a lottery, my NAGA. Come on. Uh-oh. He won a lottery and purchased his freedom. Now, they didn't say he found the gold. In another link, they're going to say, he got like $1,500 or something like that. All right, man. All you need to know is that there's a parallel, right? Because he paid for all the land around here in gold. He won a lottery, purchased his freedom. So this Denmark Vesey's for his people, right? 2 of the most famous revolts in the history was led by Denmark Vesey and Nat Turner. So even though they didn't pop it off, he was still, at least as they claim, popping it off. Now, Either he was popping it off for his people by buying the land in gold, or he was popping it off, you know what I'm saying, in a real way, you know what I mean, on the physical. Either way, he was popping it off for his people. So we're just getting to the root of it all. Love to the bro, man. He worked as a carpenter in South Carolina as a respected artisan for years and was quite satisfied with his life. He was an educated man, fluent in several languages, which he learned while he was enslaved to a widely traveled slave trader, but a profound repulsion to slavery, plus encouragement from the successful slave revolt in Haiti. So all this is popping off, man. Led him to plan to murder every white in the South. I mean, hey, if you're a white and take offense to that, just remember, you were mutilating these people. You were mutilating our people. You were mutilating our brothers and sisters left and right with no regard for young or old. Don't mind them that they want to put an end to it. Don't mind us that we want our freedom. We ain't picking on you. We just want our freedom by any means necessary. But a profound repulsion to slavery, plus encouragement from the successful slave revolt in Haiti, led him to plan to murder every white in the South with the help of thousands of slaves and supporters. The date was set for Sunday, July 24th. So, I don't know what other dates, they celebrate around revolts, but, this might be a date to put on your calendar. All right, if you're going to have a celebration day, Now, before the uprising began, his plan was revealed and he was captured, tried, and hanged. So before it got popped off, some weasel, squeaked a little bit, and guess what? He was crucified, right? He was hanged on a tree. 47 African Americans, NAGAs, were condemned to death for alleged involvement in the plot. An estimated 9,000 individuals were involved. Then we got Nat Turner popping off 1831, 1822, about 10 years earlier. Denmark was crucified. So you think one has anything to do with the other? You think Nat didn't know about this and said, you know what, we gotta do it for the real one, Denmark. We gotta do it for the home team. What happened to us, my NAGA? Because now we just fall for anything, But the Indian, the indigenous, the Hebrew, I'm talking to Jacob, Yaakov, we never stop fighting to gain our liberty. Let's go. You could do a quick surfing wiki on it as well. Now it says Denmark Vesey, also known as Telemaque, or Telemachus. Uh-oh. Now that's a major clue that we're gonna lay out, real soon. Love to the bro, Telemachus, man. Always giving great drop, man. Great Ahab, great energy, And now I get it, bro. You had to drop the whole time, bro. Telemachus had to drop the whole time, man. Denmark Vesey, also known as Telemaque. Remember the mock and the makir and all the mocks and the picks. This feather mock, all the mocks, man. If you're a mac, man, if you're a mock, that means you're hitting the mark, man. So, hey, we're gonna get a little bit more of the story, about how this Vesey is actually the name of his, owner or master. That was Captain Vesey. It's slowly coming together, right? So Captain Vesey took in this young black boy. You know what I mean? Now, Captain Vesey could have been a copper-colored NAGA too, so don't rule that out. But he took in, young Denmark. And all these are names that he became or was called. Now, the fact that it's Captain Vesey lets you know that Denmark is on ships, right? So he's dealing with ships is all you need to know. And all we're talking about is a NAGA who was on a ship who found the gold, right? Who found the gold. All right, so Telemaque or Denmark, all right, literate, skilled carpenter, leader of the African Americans in Charleston. So he's a Khan, right? He's a priest king, right? He's a leader of a tribe of people, right? We're talking South Carolina. Remember the Cariats, the Katai, Kara. Kara means black in Turkic, right? So you're talking copper-colored Nagas. In June 1822, he was accused and convicted of being the leader of the Rising Quam, a potentially major slave revolt, which was scheduled to take place. All right, so the whole plan was thwarted, right? In the city, July 14th, he was executed. July 2nd, likely born in slavery in St. Thomas. Vesey was enslaved to a man in Bermuda for some time before being brought to Charleston, where he gained his freedom. Vesey won a lottery. So again, he came up. All right, so they're going to say he came up with 1,000 or whatever. They're going to try to put a figure on it. Even Wikipedia didn't even try to put a figure on it. You know what I mean? So all you need to know is that he came up, man. How did he pay for the land in gold? Huh? This is a part of, you know what I mean? This is a gem, you know what I mean, that you got to pay attention to, that they like to drop, especially these days, right? So if you just look at the Denmark Vesey story, you're not going to connect it with no ship, no shipwreck, or no gold, all right? But if you connect this Denmark Tanny situation, let's go. So he won a lottery. He came up, right? Purchased his freedom around 32. Had a good business, family. Unable to buy his first wife, beckoned the children out of slavery. Vesey became active in the Second Presbyterian Church. 1818, he was one of the founders of an independent African Methodist Episcopal AME church in the city, which became known as the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church after the Civil War. The first independent black denomination in the U.S. was founded in Philadelphia. Now, when you pay attention, at least sometimes, when you start dealing with these churches, a lot of this stuff is cover stories and cover-ups. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? They could be under one banner, but still be silently pushing something else. In this case, we're going to see that he was telling his people that they're Israelites. Now, whether he had the doctrine this way or that way is, one thing or another. But as far as a people, they knew who they were. They knew who they were, right? 1822, Vesey was alleged to be the leader of a planned slave revolt. Vesey and his followers were said to be planning to kill slave holders in Charleston. Liberate the slaves. Liberate the slaves. So it wasn't about killing. It was about liberation. And sell to the Black Republic of Haiti for refuge. By some accounts, the revolt would have involved thousands of slaves in the city, as well as others who lived on plantations which were located miles away. City officials sent a militia to arrest the plot's leader and many suspected followers on June 22nd before the rising could begin, which was believed to be planned July 14. No white people were killed or injured. Vesey and 5 slaves were among the first group of men to be rapidly judged guilty by the secret proceedings. So they had the secret proceedings. He represented himself and he was rapidly found guilty, right? Condemned to death, executed by hanging. He was 55 at that time. In later proceedings, some 30 additional followers were executed. His son, Sandy, was also judged guilty of conspiracy and deported from the United States along with many others. So where'd they send him? Back to St. Thomas. Let's go. The court reported that he was born into slavery 1667 in St. Thomas, at the time a colony of Denmark. So that's why they called him Denmark, because he was born in a colony of Denmark. Captain Joseph Vesey. All right, so here's where it gets interesting. There's a captain named Joseph Vesey. So now they're calling him Denmark Vesey. So neither of these is his name. It's just that he was born in the colony of Denmark in St. Thomas and ended up being, you know what I'm saying, picked up by this Captain Vesey. So what's his name, right? They started calling him Telemaque. Now they're going to say because of, you know, this other classical story, and even that has a strong connection with what could be the truth. So you got Telemaque. So the story is, remember Phineas? His name is Phineas. They're saying they got it from P.T. Barnum. He was named Phineas because of his relationship with Phineas. But you also got Phineas in the script. And when you look at the Hebrew lexicon, you got Phineas the Negro. Phineas, like pineal, like pine cone. So you don't have to stop at P.T. Barnum with Phineas. Phineas is ancient. Phineas is an ancient, you know what I'm saying, biblical, quote unquote, or ancestral name connected to something much deeper. And so is this Telemaque or Telemaque or Telemachus. So Captain Joseph Vesey renamed him Telemaque. Historian Douglas Egerton suggests that Vesey could have been a Coromantee and a Khan-speaking people of origin. A Khan. All right, so shout out to my people in Ghana. We know we got a lot of our people, you know, we know we're a lot of the same people, right? So a Khan-speaking language. Biographer David Robinson suggests that Telemaque may have been of Mande origin, but his evidence has not been accepted by historians. So we're just putting together a few things, right? That there's a NAGA who purportedly was in this shipwreck called the Royal Merchant, at least on the show, and may have came out with the gold, may have came out with the loot, right? He may have came out with the loot, all right? We're just putting it together, right? They wanted to gain their liberty. They said he had a plan to kill every white in the South. But really, we know it was about the liberation of the people. And for real, I mean, there should be a date that we, you know, remember, you know what I'm saying? Because even though it didn't pop off itself, it sure did, you know, pop something off later with this Nat Turner, you know what I'm saying? All right, so we got a shipwreck. Now we got, you know, so I say, can we put him anywhere near a boat? You know, does this Denmark, how closely does this Denmark Tanny resemble the real Denmark Vesey? Because if this NAGA came out with this loot, I mean, where's the loot? One, and two, is this why they executed him? And it's worth it for his legacy, for the honor of this honorable man who wanted to liberate his people, whether with the gold or literally, you know what I'm saying, by slicing and dicing. Just like Joshua, Moshe, Dawood, you know, any of the real ones. It's worth it to investigate for the honor of our ancestors who knew and know who they are, why they were crucified. And was it about the loot? Was it about the gold? So I said, can we connect this Denmark Vesey to a boat? And here we go. He was taken in by a ship captain, all right, who renamed him Telemaque, which we're going to get some more of the story. They're going to say, oh, well, this Egerton suggests something about this Akan situation. He also had another suggestion. We'll get that in a second. So the sea captain, all right, so he's on a boat. Enslaved merchant. We're just talking about the royal merchant ship, right? So who's the royal merchant, my NAGA? After a time, Vesey sold the youth to a planter, all right, in French San Domingo, or was that Dominican Republic, something like that. And when the youth was found to suffer epileptic fits, Captain Vesey took him back and returned his purchase price to the former master. Biographer Egerton found no evidence of Denmark Vesey having epilepsy later, so he probably just outsmarted the situation, did what he had to do. And he suggests that Denmark may have faked the seizures in order to escape the particularly brutal conditions of Saint Dominique. Telemaque worked as a personal assistant for Joseph Vesey and served Vesey as an interpreter in slave trading, a job which required him to travel to Bermuda for long periods of time. As a result, he was known to be fluent in French and Spanish as well as English. Now they say Telemaque won $1,500. I mean, hey, maybe he did. You know, they say he didn't have enough to buy his family out. Or did he? You know, I mean, are they lying? Are they twisting the story out, you know? We just don't know. But we're searching. And that's the important part. Said he bought his freedom for $600. He took the surname Vesey and the given name Denmark, and the nation ruling his birthplace of St. Thomas after the nation. Denmark Vesey began working as an independent carpenter and built his own business. He's a carpenter that was crucified. Uh-oh. By this time, he married Beck, an enslaved woman. Their children were born into slavery under the principle of partes sequitur ventrium, a legal doctrine concerning the slave or free status of children born in English royal colonies. We're talking about the royal merchant, right? By which children of a slave mother took her status. Vesey worked to gain freedom for his family. He tried to buy his wife and their children, and her master would not sell her. This meant their future children would also... All right, my NAGA, y'all taking notes? So it wasn't that he didn't have enough money to buy, like they tried to throw out, oh, he tried to, you know, buy his wife and children out, but, you know, he couldn't, so he just joined the church. Nah, her master would not sell her. He couldn't buy her because her master wouldn't sell her. She was too important. Or he was just being, you know what I'm saying, you know, a white, you know what I mean? So he could have had all the gold in the world and her master still would not have sold his woman out of slavery. Okay, all right. I think we're putting some stuff together, man. All right. Even after gaining his freedom, Vesey continued to identify and socialize with many slaves. He became increasingly set on helping his new friends break from the bonds of slavery. became inspired by the congressional debates over the status of Missouri and how it should be admitted to the Union since slavery appeared to be under attack. Now check it. Vesey inspired his people by connecting their freedom to the story of Exodus and Hawa's delivery of the children of Israel from Egyptian slavery. Ain't that exactly how we think of it today? So our brother was already on point. He's like, look, man, we're in Babylon. This is Egypt. And we need to free our people. So this is how he was connecting it. He was connecting the people to the people. He was connecting the people to themselves, man. Don't you think he know? Don't you think they know? Let's go. This is from Gutenberg.org. And it's a nice comprehensive drop. I'll let you dig on it. This is chapter 11 on Denmark Vesey's insurrection. Denmark Vesey is first seen as one of 390 slaves on the ship, right, of Captain Vesey. So what happened with the shipwreck? And this royal merchant, what happened to the gold? So we talked about the epileptic fits, I'm just belly flopping with you. They made several voyages together, man. Any shipwrecks. That's further recon, right? And Denmark served until 1800 and his faithful personal assistant He was 33 years of age, living in Charleston. Again, they're saying he only won 1,500. All right. Or maybe he won that and got the gold. We don't know. The sum was much less than he was really worth, but Captain Vesey liked him and had no reason to drive a hard bargain with him. So that's the 600 that he devoted immediately to purchase his freedom. In the early years of his full manhood, accordingly, Denmark found himself a free man in his own right. So what did she just say? That he was a free man, right? He was a free man that got his gold.
Excuse you.
Sorry. Who's the dude on the wall?
Oh, it's Denmark Tanny, founder of Tanny Health.
Founder?
Mm-hmm.
So how did a slave found a cotton plantation?
He was a free man.
He was a free man. Right. Denmark found himself a free man. So it seems to be the same dude, man. Except one story doesn't have the gold, and one story, doesn't have the slave revolt situation. But if we put them two stories together, we might get the full story. He improved his time and proceeded to win greater standing and recognition by regular and industrious work at his trade. So here's this NAGA who's on the rise. Understood perfectly the fervor and faith and superstition of the Negroes with whom he had to deal. So he knew the faith, the superstition, right? So he knows, that he knows the foundation, of what was flowing through the people. He knows his people. Now check it. Vesey found his opportunity. He drew interesting parallels between the experiences of the Jews and the Negroes. Come on, man. So first he's letting them know they're Israel. He's drawing connections between the Jews and the Negroes. Nat Turner was doing the same thing, right? We are slaves. We are slaves, he would say. You deserve to be. If the man then asked what he could do to better his condition, he would say, go and buy a spelling book and read the fable of Hercules and the wagoner. At the same time, if he happened to engage in conversation with white people in the presence of Negroes, he would often take occasion to introduce some striking remark on slavery. He regularly held up to emulation the work of the Negroes of San Domingo. Either he or one of his chief lieutenants clandestinely sent a letter to the president of San Domingo to ask if the people there would help the Negroes of Charleston. He's over there tribing up, right? I mean, he's pedal to the metal, 100 bars and running. Now, this whole story brings in who? Gola Jack. This is another, very strong character. Not just character, but, real foundation. I mean, what I'm saying? That was also executed, also crucified. You know what I mean? But in the real story, these are the main players. Monday Gale, Lot Forrester, Frank Ferguson. These are the chief assistants. You know what I mean? He's just tribing up. Gola Jack was regarded as a sorcerer because he had all the drop, in the ancient magic, they said. The magic of his people. Gola Jack. So they keep talking about Africa. But you're just talking about the indigenous ones, the Magi's, man. Let's get this part right here. The first court, which speedily condemned 34 men to death, was severely criticized. They called it a bloody sacrifice. That's all they did. Now, one of these links was talking about that he probably didn't even do it. That it looked like it could be some other conspiracy that they're saying he did it. Which is, then you say, well, why? And then you factor in the gold, the 400 million, she said. 400 million in gold. In general, Vesey sought to bring into the plan those Negroes, such as stevedores and mechanics, who worked away from home and who had some free time. He would not use men that were known to become intoxicated, and one talkative man named George he excluded from the meetings, nor did he use women, not because he didn't trust them, but because in case of mishap, he wanted the children to be properly cared for. All right. So let's continue to connect things. Let's go. So whether you call him Telemaque or Telemachus or Telemaque, or you call him Denmark. Very interesting link right here that we'll belly flop with, man, almost at the dismount. But it gets, he started digging on this Denmark, man, and, obviously, just the connection with Nat Turner alone, what I'm saying, let you know this is far from play. Far from play. And let's get it, man. I'm trying to get this part. But what of a small number of black revolutionaries who disregarded the impossibly long odds and plotted warfare against their white oppressors? Their willingness to employ violence against white women and children as well as white men has rendered them controversial figures. Since the colonial era, the idea of blacks plotting to slit the throats of their owners has generated tremendous discomfort. I mean, come on, man. You see the you see the idiocracy that you can invade a people and not expect them to want to slit your throat. What kind of people you think you're dealing with? Where do you think you can go mutilate the women, the children, you know what I'm saying, slaughter the priests, slaughter the men, I mean, and just poison everybody and not expect anybody in their right mind to want to get at you, to want to annihilate your every, existence, man. But it makes them tremendously discomforted. Let's go, man. Before I go crazy. So Denmark and Nat Turner are difficult figures to address with any measure of scholarly detachment. Any historian seeking to recapture the life of such figures cannot help but think of the reception awaiting Styron, who, we should keep in mind, was not even claiming to be writing an accurate history of the subject. Certainly, Douglas Egerton's biography reflects a tension between the historian's responsibility to dissect mythologies and socially conscious individuals' desire to respect African American or the NAGA, the Khans, heroes who challenged slavery at its course. I mean, you're talking priest kings, you're talking presters. Egerton begins his work with such an event that transpired more than 4 decades after Denmark Vesey's death by execution in 1822. Upon the defeat of the Confederacy of 1865, black Charlestonians set about constructing a new African Methodist Episcopal Church, an institution that had been decimated when whites learned of Vesey's conspiracy to rebel against slavery. The rebuilding project illustrated the extent to which African Americans could unite behind a project and see it to fruition, relying only upon members of their own race. The architect of the new building, moreover, was Denmark's son, Robert Vesey. And if only they were out of that hijack, right? Let's go. I mean, the story is deep, and I mean, just like that one link said, for them to use this as a subplot and just throw this out. Oh, by the way, the plantation we live on was owned by a black man who bought all this land in gold. Come on, man. You want to get back to summertime romance? Let's go. So we got this Telemaque. I'm just checking this piece out right here. Like I said, I'm belly flopping. All right, yeah. So we're going to get to this name, Telemaque. So this gets even more interesting. This is accordingly suddenly manifested epilepsy. All right, we got that part. Returned to Vesey as unfit merchandise, the boy became a permanent member of Vesey's crew. As such, the captain deemed him the name Telemaque, a classical reference to the sun. So before it was, some other reference, Now it's specifically a reference to the Greek hero Odysseus. Vesey's allusion to an ancient Greek poem underscored the multiple cultural dynamic to the Atlantic plantation system. Now, what happened with this Odysseus, this Greek hero? Why would the captain name this black slave, right, Telemaque? I mean, ain't that some random ass stuff, man, that you just go, you know what, I'm going to call you Telemaque after the wandering Greek hero Odysseus. Now, remember that, because that's going to come up again And it's going to be even clearer why he was renamed Telemaque after this Odysseus. Okay, let's go. For the dismount, Vesey's allusion to the ancient Greek poem underscored the multicultural dynamic to the Atlantic plantation system. Telemaque already spoke Creole, Dutch, and French. He quickly mastered English as well, and no doubt employed his linguistic skills to communicate with his fellow settlers and with the slaves whom the ship proceeded to transport over the next year. Telemaque. What's this Odysseus about? Let's get it from here. And definitely take your time with this, you know what I mean? You can read every line to connect the mystery. She say he's a mystery, right? It's mysterious, man. I mean, it's a definitely, it's a gem right in her lap, man. So throughout the work, Egerton emphasizes the heroic undercurrent In the end, whites believe the plot sprang from black distortion of biblical teaching. Ain't that what they say today? Man, you guys are distorting the word. Jesus was for everybody. Really? Because even that cat said I only came for the lost tribes of the house of Israel. You know what I'm saying? Even that cat said that. Even they had to put a little tribal in him, right? Egerton emphasizes the heroic undercurrent to the waves of tragedy that washed through Vesey's life. Fittingly, the biography of Vesey ends not on the scaffold, but with the demise of the slave owners' request to protect their institution of unfree labor. With the American flag was once again raised at Fort Sumter, one of Vesey's children was on hand to witness the historical moment. Although Vesey's plot had failed in the short term goal of armed assault against the planters, his spirit of resistance lived on in the troops who struggled successfully against the Confederacy. Notwithstanding the personal tragedies and unhappy ending of Vesey's life, Egerton presents his biography as a story of hope. So, shout out to Egerton. At least he, came, with a perspective of hope. You know what I'm saying? Yet I wonder if Egerton is not searching for ways in which to build up his subject as a role model worthy of admiration in modern America. Well, anybody who wants freedom for their people is definitely worthy of admiration, my NAGA, everywhere across the planet. In similar fashion, Egerton discounts the slave confession testimony, suggesting that some of the revolutionaries intended to gain sexual access to white female prisoners. So, they keep trying to throw in the sex narrative and what they were trying to put. Oh, he's a polygamist who beat his wives, Like, of course they're going to try to, throw the static in. They ain't proving nothing. They're just slandering the man's name by throwing rumors out. But the rumors we're interested in is who got the loot, who got the loot, who got the loot. Who got the loot? And let's get some more about this Telemaque, man. Shout out to the bro. What does it have to do with this Odyssey or Odysseus. All these links are dope, man. They give you, all of them got a little, something different in it. Let's get to page 3. Now the interesting thing too is that they're saying that some say he came from the Gold Coast. So they kind of throw little hints out there. They keep throwing this Gold Coast around him, right? And they had all this gold in this shipwreck. Now here we go. Now, why is he being called Telemaque, right? Shout out to the bro Telemaque. Let's get this bigger for the disc, man. Telemachus figures prominently in Homer's Odyssey, right? Odysseus, the wandering son. Wandering son. So we got a wandering son that's crucified who's a carpenter. Let's keep going. Telemachus figures prominently in Homer's Odyssey as the wandering son of Odysseus and Penelope. He was shipwrecked. Wait a minute. You telling me. Let's hear this, man. Come on, man.
He's kind of a mystery. He showed up out of nowhere and paid for all of the land around here in gold.
In gold?
Mm-hmm. Hey, I'm not finished, Sancho.
Danny. I recognize that name. He was on the Royal Merchant. But there's no survivor.
There were no survivors. Huh? It was a shipwreck and there were no survivors. Now this is Denmark Vesey. I said, how can we connect him with to a ship? And here he is working for this Captain Vesey. So he's on the ship all day, all night. He knows the ship very good. He studied navigation along with all this other linguistic stuff. He was an interpreter. And then he buys his freedom. They say he came up, he wins the lottery. He tries to get his wife in them, but the master won't sell it no matter how much gold he got. Does he buy the land for his people? I mean, somebody who's interested in revolt like this would definitely chip in for their people, put in for their people, right? Now, on top of all that other connection, he's being renamed Telemaque or Telemachus after this Odysseus who was shipwrecked on a daily island of Aegea or Og until rescued by Calypso. So he's named after someone who was shipwrecked and then rescued. Although they just said right here that there were no survivors in this shipwreck, but clearly he was rescued. Is this why he's named after someone else who was in the shipwreck and was also rescued? Rescued in a shipwreck. Did he get the drop? I mean, it's for you, man. It's for you. Thus, naming of Denmark thus suggests Joseph Vesey's interest in classical literature, or that he was leaving clues, even in his name, that he had the drop. Who got The drop. Who got the drop by now? It's another good link, man. Gonna take you through, another phase of the story. We're gonna go right to page 32. This is koru.info. Just some quick recon, Even before this, I think there was something else I wanted to look at. Let's get it from here. Yeah. Alright. Okay, so you got this Telemaque. There's another little piece of the pie around here somewhere that I saw. Let's see if I can dig it on up. Yeah, they got a lot of drop, man, when you just take your time with this stuff. We're just, seeing if there's anything that sticks. And, the things that don't, they just fall right off. They fall right off. But once in a while, man, you got, something that really connects to something greater. And if anything, like I said, it's to pay honor, man, and look at a story with a dragonfly perspective at all times. Okay, well, maybe that other part will pop up later. I got so much going on sometimes. And even when that turns, man, we really got to get on that even more because it's, not a lot, on the surface. You know what I'm saying? They give you a little surface story and that's all you're going to get. That's all you're going to get. Yeah. Oh, there we go. As I knew. Had to do, we was talking about the Israelite situation. I knew there was another piece of the pie. It says, whatever his success as a black artisan in a white-dominated economy, Vesey remained emotionally vested in the slave community, whereas the brown society of Charleston mulattoes struggled to ingratiate itself with the white elite. Vesey developed friendships with slaves such as Rolla Bennett, Peter Poyas, and Monday Gale. Far from avoiding the slaves who filled Charleston's busy streets, Vesey preached to them a message of equality and defiance towards white authority. His enormous physical presence and powerful intellect emboldened him to denounce slavery in public. Egerton demonstrates the complicated ways in which Christianity factored into Vesey's defiance of the slaveholders' regime. Rejecting the slaveholders' white ministry's message of obedience and humility, Vesey and the circle of friends filled the pews of the African Methodist Episcopal Church on Cow Alley, assuming the responsibilities of a class leader. Vesey invoked the Old Testament. Now, they specifically brought that out, right? Vesey invoked the Old Testament, so he invoked the Tanakh. He wasn't pushing no New Testament obedience, turn the other cheek, humility, what they call the white ministry message. He wasn't pushing the white ministry's message. He was pushing the Tanakh. So was it really Christianity? Like I said, sometimes they come under these banners. You can call it, AME, yada, 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 but, you don't know the man until you speak to the man and how he's formulating his plan. You don't know the man until you know how he's formulating the plan. Can't be so quick to, just start throwing stones, you know what I'm saying? So Vesey invoked the Old Testament, likening African Americans to the Hebrews. So we got earlier that, he was connecting, the people with the tribes of Israel. Now we're getting that he invoked the Old Testament, likening African Americans or Negroes to Hebrews, marked by Hawa for liberation. So he was telling his people that they're the chosen people of the Creator, that they are the Hebrews. In his analysis of his theological development, Egerton makes a fascinating case for the convergence between the Hebrew Bible and traditional African cosmology. Hebrew Bible, not Christianity, right? An affinity personified by Vesey's close relationship with an East African priest, Jack Pritchard, or who they call Gola Jack. Alright, so what you need to know is that they know who they are. Our people knew who they were, man. Even if they was hijacked in this and that, in this religion, that religion, they knew who they were, and they were fighting, just like the ancestors were fighting. And they were using the energy of the ancestors, of Hawa, for the freedom and the liberation. Hawa, Telemaque has everything to do with this shipwreck, huh? Everything to do with the gold. Okay. You see down here in the fine print, again, Telemaque was shipwrecked on the perilous island of Agia, from whence he was rescued by Calypso, when in fact it was his father Odysseus who experienced that fate. He then referred to Calypso as a savior who treated him kindly. Okay. So you just see a lot of correlations and connections, and of course, that's pretty much the nail in the coffin that they're calling him Telemaque, who had everything to do with this shipwreck on this island, right? And this whole, show is taking place on this island around this shipwreck. Around this shipwreck, there were no survivors. Who got to go? Who got to go? And one more link I'll leave you with from bearnews.com. Also breaking down the drop. And this one actually has a couple quick clips to it, so let's go ahead and get that again, man. Fair use. Fair use in your caboose bone. All good.
A polygamist, a former slave who had purchased his freedom with money won in a lottery. A man described by his acquaintances as mean and intolerant of human frailty.
Let me get it bigger for y'all. Man. I know y'all got the movie theater size TVs and stuff, man. So always staying cozy around here. Surfing the wave. Here we go.
Frailty. Denmark Vesey seemed an unlikely candidate to unite slaves and free black people in the fight for their liberty.
Now think about this too. Why would he be a polygamist? You know what I'm saying? Why do they keep saying that? A polygamist, he had multiple wives and yada, yada, yada. You know what I mean? What are the Mormons doing in Utah, right? And this and that. You know what I mean? Where are they getting it from, right? So we already know that that's always been in our ancient love song. You know what I mean? That's always been a part of our flow. All right. So what they call polygamy, polygamous, you know what I'm saying? Whether you're talking King David or Solomon or, you know what I'm saying, many NAGAs in between. That's how the household was set up, not, you know what I'm saying, for no, it wasn't no sexual thing. It was all about building the kingdom. It was all about, putting the resources together and, having a fruitful kingdom, you know what I'm saying, and being fair and lawful, you know what I'm saying, keeping the code. And, if you talk about building up a nation quickly, you know what I mean, then yeah, you definitely are in the ancient love song, the ancient flow. Anything, what they call it, not monogamous, you know what I mean, but just, you know what I'm saying, just the flow that we're in right now is completely upside down. Everything's upside down. So when they say polygamous, don't get triggered, you know what I mean? Just think about the ancient love song. Think about, you know what I'm saying, the ancient Hebrews, you know what I mean? So he's telling his people that the Hebrews, he's living a Hebrew flow, at least with that, you know what I'm saying? And it's all the ancient love song. And it's very interesting that it's happening at a time with all this Christianity. I mean, to be a black man and a polygamist, so to speak, that's pretty much, you know what I'm saying, everything against the grain of these 19th century, slave situations. If anything, they were trying to stop you from reproducing or make you reproduce, force you to reproduce for their profit, but to have your tribe and to, you know what I'm saying, be rocking. Now again, they said that he tried to buy his wife and children out, but he has multiple wives. So he must have been able to buy their freedom, right? Let's go.
As the property of a slave ship's captain, Joseph Vesey, for nearly half his life, Denmark was well acquainted with the harsh realities of the traffic in flesh.
I think that his own experiences
being born a slave in St. Thomas, living briefly before the revolution in San Domingue as a slave, being forced by Captain Vesey to go down to the docks and even bring ashore slaves who were being...
Hold up, so this is Egerton, so this is who's supposed to be the source, right? But he's also the one that they say is kind of fair when they talk about him. Maybe he's even, trying to make him an honorable figure, you know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. I mean, the jury's still out, but this is the Egerton we've been reading about, and all praise the while that we've been doing the recon, and now we can pull it up and know what we're talking about. Let go.
Being imported into South Carolina and get them to the slave pens in Charleston, reminded him that this was not a world of brotherhood.
In 1816, Denmark Vesey and other black Methodists in Charleston elected to separate from the white church. By 1820, there were some 3,000 members of the city's African church, accounting for nearly a third of the members of the AME denomination nationwide.
The church was opening
And that's the thing too. So when you talk about this church stuff, this is just a step, you know what I'm saying? He couldn't go from this to that, you know what I'm saying? But he at least separated them from a lot of that brainwash, a lot of that, you know what I'm saying, what they call the white ministry, right? So then he started being more Torah or Tanakh based and how he flowed, even though it was under the banner of AME. You dig? Let's go.
this horizon, people were experiencing this conversion so that all of a sudden they see themselves as a part of this larger world, this larger God, this cosmos, where they have rights.
When white authorities shut down Charleston's African church, church members decided it was time to orchestrate a plan to free the slaves of Charleston. They were led by Denmark Vesey. Vesey called a meeting to organize the strike, excluding, he said, slaves who accepted presents of old coats from their masters, and the pastor in charge of the African church.
I one night met at Vesey's a great number of men. Vesey said the Negroes were living such an abominable life, they ought to rise. I said I was living well. He said though I was, others was not, and that it was such fools as I that were in their way. Frank.
The number of conspirators in Vesey's plot was estimated to be in the thousands, making it the most far-reaching insurrection planned in North America.
Denmark Vesey's plot against Charleston, South Carolina, was one of the most significant of the attempts to strike against slavery.
And just imagine if he actually had hundreds of millions of dollars in gold. I mean, that will really make sense now. You got to put all this together. Why it would really be the largest NAGA revolt plan. He had all resources, but his own folk, his own people turned against him. But just imagine the power that comes with, you know what I'm saying, that type of capital and that type of spirit, that type of ruach, that type of, fearlessness, man, that type of boldness. Man, this is con business, man. We con up, man.
By American slaves, probably the most elaborately planned of the conspiracies that we know about. And it's interesting in several regards, and one of the ways in which it's interesting is that it appeals to both biblical Christianity and to African conjure.
Jack Pritchett called on me. He's sometimes called Gullah Jack, sometimes times colder, Jack. He said, put into your mouth this crab claw, and you can't be wounded. He said all his country born promised to join, because he was a doctor, that is a conjurer. He said his charms would not protect him from the treachery of his own color. Witness number 10, a Negro man.
Unlike Gabriel 20 years before, Vesey planned to spare few whites. But like Gabriel, his insurrection ended before it began. Vesey was informed on by one of his men and captured and sentenced to die.
By one of his own men. By one of his own men. Alright. You can see the rest of that. There's one more quick 2-minute, 3-minute version right quick that we'll pull up as well. And it feels good, to, pay homage, man, to pay respects to the legacies of those that stepped up. And we could talk about all the hijack we want to, but if we ain't got the heart, if we ain't got the stones, if we don't trust Hawa like they trusted Hawa to step up, if we're okay with perpetual bondage, perpetual servitude, forever slavery, the least we can do is pay homage and honors and respect to those who stepped up. And all praise to Hawa that we get the energy and the unity to do the same. Allow Hawa. Allow Hawa. Because if we don't do the same, our children are now in a situation to figure things out, to be forever slaves. You know what I mean? And it goes beyond, this tribe, that tribe. It's everyone who finds themselves behind enemy lines on their own soil. My NAGA.
Majority of the population here, which was a black population and an enslaved population, and he, through his actions, in an effort to organize a conspiracy, spoke to the aspirations of African people in this city, in this state, and indeed throughout the South in the early 19th century. He was a member of what was then known as the African Church in Charleston. And the African Church in Charleston was an independent African-American denomination in the city affiliated with the AME Church, or the African Methodist Episcopal Church, that had been founded in Philadelphia in 1816. This is a significant development and a significant point in history, because the black Charlestonians who created this church and affiliated with the AME Church in Philadelphia were essentially affiliating with an abolitionist church, and they were attempting to run their own affairs in the midst of a slaveholding society. Well, as you might imagine, that African church, its leaders, and Vesey was one of its leaders, and the members came in for persecution. The leaders were arrested. The church was temporarily closed down on more than one occasion. And we think that it was probably the persecution of this church, as well as Denmark Vesey's personal dissatisfaction with his inability to enjoy all of the full fruits of freedom in a slaveholding society as a free black, and then his inability to obtain freedom for his children. He was not able to purchase their freedom. And it may have been the convergence of all of those factors that then led him to begin to organize a conspiracy of slaves in 1822. And let me tell you about the plan. The plan was to organize slaves in the city of Charleston and for them to arm themselves set fire strategically to a number of locations around the city, and then to call in slaves from the surrounding area to occupy the city. Now, as it turns out, word would leak out, and there were some informants, slaves themselves, who informed on the conspiracy. And Denmark and others were arrested. They would be tried, and of course, a trial on these kinds of accusations virtually always led to a conviction and execution. And so indeed, in the summer of 1822, Denmark Vesey, along with 34 others, were executed by hanging on the outskirts of the city, and 37 other people convicted of participating in the conspiracy in one way or other. Now today, we're standing right in front of Emmanuel AME Church, downtown Charleston on Calhoun Street. And this church is symbolically and substantially important because of the connection to Denmark Vesey. The builder, the original builder for this church in 1865 was Denmark Vesey's son. And the members of the original African church that remained in Charleston really comprised the nucleus for this congregation and for this place of worship when the African church, or the AME church, was in effect reorganized and reestablished in the city of Charleston in 1865.
Man, I mean, the history runs deep, man, and you wonder as they're breaking away, it must be tough, to know more than you're able to really teach. You know what I'm saying? You can say, okay, well, let's break away from the master this way, and then you start giving them little bits of information that they are the people, the chosen, the flow. But when it comes to Hawaii, it all got to line up. When you talk about successful, just having success, period, and just being victorious against all static and all hijacks, period. You know what I'm saying? You got to be 100, man. We got to be in the code. We can't be no play. We can't be tying a bunch of stuff into anything. You know what I'm saying? Everything we do, to the best of our ability, must be in the code. And as code keepers, we search for the inspiration to be at our very fullest vibration. And like they say, this might not have popped off when he wanted it to, but it sure did lead, to action. Then and now, because we're now digging on it. We're now getting the inspiration for the action. And action don't have to mean, violence and this and that and that and that. But hey, when you talk about revolution, show me one revolution that has no similitude of literal blood, sweat, and tears, man. Blood, sweat, and tears for redemption. I mean, what did the hijack say? Give me liberty or give me death, as they're over there rebelling from Black King George and them. Give me liberty or give me death. That's how the NAGA feel, man. We want our liberation. Oh, are we to be called rebels, savages, thugs? Give me liberty or give us death. Scottish Arbor Oath, as long as there's 100 of us, will never fall under English rule, under any hijack. And this is what the awakening is, and this is what you get. First you remember, you repent, you let go of all that hijack, man. You get hijack free, and then you start to, connect to each other. We start seeking the priest kings, the presters, the Dawees, and we get the inspiration. Because this man is a mystery, my people. Denmark is just a mystery, my people. And we are on the hunt.
But there's no survivors.
We are on the investigation.
So how did a slave found a cotton plantation?
He was a free man. He's kind of a mystery. He showed up out of nowhere.
Let go. Oh man, the hijack is never late. Because the indigenous truth is always on time.
Excuse you.
Sorry. Who's the dude on the wall?
Oh, it's Denmark Tanny, founder of Tanny Health.
Founder?
Mm-hmm.
So how did a slave found a cotton plantation?
He was a free man. He's kind of a mystery. He showed up out of nowhere and paid for all of the land around here in gold.
In gold?
Mm-hmm.
Hey,
I'm not finished, Sancho.
Tanny. I recognize that name. He was on the Royal Merchant. But there's no survivors.
Hey, what else do you know about this guy?
What else do you know about this guy?
When we first moved in, we found a diary, an almanac, a bunch of papers. Ward donated all of it to the State Archives at Chapel Hill.
Can I go see that?
So the State Archives at Chapel Hill got the drop, man. And we are Drop Nation. And the work continues, man. Y'all make sure you keep the water flowing and keep the fire burning, man. To the tribe, we in the wave, man. All the wave is one drop. And it's clear, man. The drop is getting clearer and clearer. And it's a good time for us. And it's a time of clarity for us. And it's a victory lap for us. Cause like the bro Nat, Supernatural always say, man, we already won, man. Take your victory lap, my Nagas. And remember, you are the mystery. And you got to go. And hey, man, if anything, pay respects to the ones that show up. Pay respects to the ones that show up, man. The energy, the coon, the rising. Oh, this was the rising. This was the rising. And what happened to all the gold and what really happened? Why was he executed? Why was he and everybody that knew anything executed? Maybe we can continue to peel back the layers of the mystery. All praise our creator. Oh, wow.